Hello, everyone. My name is Darrin Michael. I am the head of sales and marketing here at ICG, and I wanted to welcome you to the next installment of the ICG BizTech webinar series, Fourth Shift Workplace. Our goal today is to detail specifics about workplace and how it can impact your organization. Remember, this is your webinar. And if you have any questions along the way, please let us know right away, and we'll make sure that we immediately answer them. If for some reason we are unable to get any questions answered, we'll definitely send them out to everybody with the answers, along with a recording of the presentation. So I welcome everybody to the webinar. And Roger, let's go ahead and get started. So I wanted to just introduce today's speakers. We've got our own Roger Weidel, who is a fourth shift lifer and one of the most experienced fourth shifters on the planet. I think everybody already knows that. And we also have a special guest, Jon Ehly, who is the president and CEO of a company called Plastilite, and we'll talk to him in just a little bit. So thank you, gentlemen, both of you, for joining us today. Really appreciate that. So we're just going to go through a quick agenda. We're just going to talk a little bit about ICG. I realize everybody kind of knows who we are. Just want to talk a little bit about who we are, a little overview about workplace itself, and then we're going to get into the nuts and bolts, the nitty-gritty, go through the demo itself so you can actually see the software in action. And then assuming we have a few minutes at the end, we'll have some Q&A. And like I said, any questions that we're unable to answer due to time restrictions, we will definitely get those answered and get them out to everybody so they can take advantage of all of the information today. So just wanted to start off with the ICG approach. And basically what it is ICG, we're a process-driven business technology company. And what we do is we ensure that your IT platform securely delivers your applications and processes whenever and wherever you need them. If you look on the right, you'll see it says a solid technology foundation. It delivers your business applications when and where you need them. These two combined implement your unique business processes, allowing you to reach your goals. So, Roger, exactly is fourth shift workplace?
Fourth shift workplace is the user interface that Info released that leverages a browser-based environment so that there's a lot more flexibility in what you can do with the application, how you can use it, where you can access it from, and in general, just the capability that's provided within the environment. You know, we're used to forever being the graphical user interface, which is a compiled application that was really limited as far as what you could do from an integration and customization perspective. There are APIs that you can use, but nothing really to change the user interface. You kind of got what you got. So if you wanted to add buttons, you wanted to add logic, you wanted to add validation, there really was no good way to do that with the graphical user interface. And that's all been changed now with the browser UI. In addition, Infor is coming out with new advanced functionality, one of them being the advanced purchasing authorization that's only going to be delivered via Workplace, because there's much more flexibility in designing and building application extensions in that environment. Infor is basically saying, if you want to take advantage of this new functionality, you really do need to use Workplace. And this is a screenshot of what Workplace looks like. If you're familiar with the fourth shift screen, which I'm sure most of you are, the item master looks kind of the same way. You got the same feel as far as how the fields are laid out. Some things are different. There's no longer F7, F8, F9. Instead, I've got tabs that are used to call up different functions that are related to the item master. I've still got my 4-letter code if you want to, but I've got the Explorer along the side. We're going to get into a lot more of this as I show you the demo, but the idea being that if you know how to navigate with the existing FAT client, the GUI user interface, you really should have no problem learning to work within the browser, the Workplace. So questions I have for you are, one, do you use fourth shift in Workplace, or are you still using the old graphical user interface? You know, one of the things that we've learned over time is that as the Workplace becomes younger and younger with folks coming in who are not used to using compiled applications. They're much more comfortable within a graphical user interface and within a web browser interface environment. So they take to ForShift Workplace very, very well. And those of us that have used ForShift for a long time, well, we're used to the different alt key combinations and control key combinations. It's not normal for folks to know how to do that. It's confusing for people who are just used to a web browser and how things work within that environment. The other question is, have you used Connectivity Toolkit? Toolkit comes along with Workplace, and it's what you can use to modify or enhance or personalize the user interface to do things that ForShift by itself doesn't do out of the box, but your business might need for your specific process. Concepts around Workplace. First and foremost, it's web-based. So we throw away the idea that you've got to have a compiled application. And being web-based means I can access it from anywhere I can get to a browser based on what my security is to get into ForShift. I use portals. And what are portals? Well, instead of just logging into a ForShift screen, I can have a role-based environment where different screens are present based on what my role is. If I'm in shipping, I might see one set of screens versus and where I entered ForShift at versus if I'm in planning or I'm a buyer. And the idea is I can use something called publish and subscribe to link multiple screens together to really make that environment perfect for the user whose role they'll be logging into. The user interface is customizable. So I'm not just stuck with the look and feel of what ForShift gives me. I can hide fields, I can add fields, I can add screens, I can add buttons, I can add logic, I can add validation. Really, it comes down to whatever it is you need to do to make ForShift work for your business. And unlike the ForShift Fact client, there really are endless possibilities of how I can do integration, especially when I incorporate what I can do with Connectivity Toolkit. So differentiators, now notice the question about browsers. Notice IE, Edge, and Chrome. And like I said, there may be other browsers that are out there that you can work with using ForShift. I can't tell you which ones specifically, but I know that all three of those work and can be used. The initial splash screen, you can change that to be whatever you want to. So if there are messages you want to put out to users logging in about maybe potential planned system downtime or company events like picnics or whatever, I can make that part of my login screen, my initial splash screen, so everybody in the company who logs into ForShift can see it. No more F8, F9, F10. It's all screen tabs instead. And it plays by the standard window keyboard shortcuts. So Control C is copy, Control V is paste. If you know your way around the keyboard shortcuts, you can be very functional within ForShift. There are some real nice things around what they've done with implementing a ForShift. Now, there are hot links to go from screen to screen, so I'm not tied to necessarily a function key or a four-letter code. There's field and screen help. I've got drop-down selectors where I've got to fill in the blank for different fields. And I've got the navigator. Plus, what's really powerful, not just the finders with immediate data extract, but the finders themselves. You know, those of us who have worked with ForShift for a long time are very used to the fact that I'm very limited in how I can search for information on different screens in ForShift. Finders take care of that, and in and of themselves make Workplace a very useful place to be within the ForShift environment. And then being able to immediately take data out to Excel, even more powerful.
A special guest with us, and that is the president and CEO of Plastilite, Jon Ehly. Plastilite is a company based out of Omaha, Nebraska. And Jon, would you like to just tell us a little bit about your organization?
Sure. Plastilite is located in Omaha. We're a manufacturer of EPS foam products. So if you've ever gone fishing and you picked up a foam minnow bucket, that's us. If you ever got Omaha steaks delivered to your doorstep, we also do that. We're currently in the process of completing ForShift. I was brought in back in 2011. Probably the only reason I got brought in here is because I had experience implementing ERP systems. So I've done everything from SaaS to Great Plains and everything in between. ForShift was just, it kind of stood out from the rest of them. Everybody that had come in from another company, there was 3 employees, and they had been on ForShift before, and then they saw Workplace, and their eyes lit up, and they were like, oh my gosh, this is like It's a whole different world. So we've been on Workplace ever since I've started here. I really don't know any difference between that and the GUI, except for having to go back into the GUI app and change the calendar for once in a while for the shop calendar and that type of thing too. So we've had just a great experience with it.
That's great. That's great. So what challenges initially led the company to purchasing Workplace?
Yeah, I think it was probably just because nobody had any familiarity with the old ERP. We had no ERP when I got here, so there was no familiarity with how things kind of integrated and worked within an ERP system. So this was very intuitive and very user friendly. At least the people that were on like the team that were implementing this. So that I think that's what kind of brought us to getting into Workplace.
How has Plastilite used Workplace successfully, and what has been the impact to your business?
Yeah, so the things that Roger just kind of rattled off a slide or so ago. So we've done a lot of the customization. So we have a customization in one of the screens where it'll automatically tell you the weight of each of the different product classes. So they can be in there, the COMT screen, putting in a customer order, and they can get a quote from a freight company because they know the class of the products that they're getting. That's been huge. We get a lot of drop ships. So we've customized one of the fields in the screen to be a drop ship screen. We've also done a lot of integration with EDI. So we're running an EDIV. So we're able to have them put information into the different screens. So people have that information right in front of them when they're looking to invoice. I mean, all the screen customization has been just huge for us, as well as like we do the custom portals. So all of our salespeople, when they open up 4Shift in the morning in Workplace, they've got the COMT screen in one corner. They have SSII in another corner. They have the inventory in another corner. So they can, at a moment's glance, they can always say, if somebody calls in and says, hey, I'm looking to order 20 of an item, it's like they can just glance over the corner and tell you, yep, I have all those in stock, piece of cake, get those shipped out this afternoon. So the custom portal piece has really been like a huge upside. I don't know if everybody takes advantage of it like we do, but we just love it. It's been a godsend for us.
That's great. Now, since you guys have been using it for a long time, besides that, are there any other suggestions for people as to how they can get more out of Workplace? I know that there are quite a few people on the call that actually already have and use Workplace. So is there anything that you could suggest to them that they might be able to use to get more out of it?
Yeah, I'm not sure if they've tried it on mobile devices yet, but I mean, you can take your I didn't know this until about a year ago. You can take your laptop anywhere in our building because all of our wireless access points are also connected through the secure connection. So we can take a laptop out, sit down in the warehouse, and if you're doing inventory counting, we can do it immediately on a laptop, or we can look things up on a laptop. That's been huge for us. But yeah, I mean, just the overall ease to bring when a new person comes into Plastilite. I mean, the training is so quick and so easy to get them up to speed. Just because they're used to, like, I can click on, it's more intuitive. Like, I want to look at reporting, I want to run a sales report, or I want to do a file browse. I mean, it's been such a easy product to train people on. We're just really pleased with Workplace. It's been great for us.
That's great. That's great. Well, Jon, listen, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for your input, and wishing your organization continued success. Excited about the NFL deal that you got. Yeah. Can't wait to see those in the stores. So thanks again, Jon, for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So portals, the idea is that there are public and private portals, so I can have those that I want to share amongst everybody in the organization, make them public, or I can have private ones that only a specific number of users are going to be able to access and see. So maybe I've got a financial portal that I only want finance to be able to access. That's who I only give rights to that portal or group of portals. Frames are the things that are contained within a portal and are used to open up different windows of access into 4Shift. I can have up to 4 shift screens open at one time in a given portal, or I can have up to 25 frames, including other screens, other systems. Now, one thing to keep in mind, and I was just asked this question, I think it was late last week. If I go into fourth shift and I'm in 2 different tabs and I'm using fourth shift graphical user interface, can I do that? And the answer is sure you can, but you're going to consume 2 user licenses. Using portals and workplace, I can have 4 shift screens active at one time in my session and still only consume 1 user license. So it's a real big plus. Now, one of the drawbacks is not all modules are natively accessible through Workplace. They're listed there: sales order processing, materials management, engineering, and shop floor. But I can serve them up using a virtual desktop interface, and Workplace does support that. So it's just a matter of how it's configured to be able to roll out other things that normally Workplace wouldn't be able to support. And external websites, as I mentioned, by the fact that you can have so many different frames open at one time, can be used to link with data from 4Shift. So I can have the shipping bill of lading screen with a packing list number related to UPS or FedEx and automatically pull up those screens. It really depends on what you want to integrate to, but the idea is the capability is there to make it happen. You've heard us mention Connectivity Toolkit, and Toolkit is the environment used to personalize or customize what Workplace can do in the functionality it has. And the nice thing is, Infor provided a bunch of built-in functions. Now you can expand them by building your own Java code if you want to, or you can just rely on what Infor has given you. And there are different activation criteria, things like when a panel loads, or when I hover over a field, or when I blur a field. The different functions can be activated based on whatever criteria you select. For each one of the built-in functions, there's detailed help and descriptions of what the parameters are and how they're used. And a couple of simple personalizations you could do. I could change a field label name. I could add logic to a field, provide a validation list. And I'm going to show you a number of these when we go through and actually drive the software so you can see what it looks like. One of the nice things about this is, as I make customizations, I can do it in a sandbox environment, and there's a capability within Workplace to export those customizations, import them into a new environment, run the XML generator, and now I'm going to be running whatever I've customized within my sandbox. Because, of course, we never customize first time in production environment, right? So let's take a look at the demo here. I'm going to stop sharing this screen.
Hey, Roger.
Yeah.
Roger, really quickly, before you start the demo, we just have a quick question I was hoping you could answer. When you reference modules via VDI, is that as a remote desktop public application, or do we need a full remote desktop session?
It's a terminal server. You need a terminal server running on the back end that can serve up those applications.
Yeah, it's a standard RDS. You can run published apps or desktops, whichever you choose. Depends on what the user needs. Again, we roll out the clients based on what your user roles look like, not necessarily what I want to force down their throats, essentially. Each user, each individual in the plant may need a different set of tools, and we'll use those tools accordingly, right? So in Jon's case, 99.9% of everyone either is using Workplace as their primary client or MFG Stream data collection as the data collection / process automation. So yeah, we can roll it out published or full desktop, whichever you like.
Thanks, Jeff. So I am accessing Workplace. This is the initial splash screen, and this is over our Cloud4 environment. I'm running this from our Cloud4 server across the internet. Notice I start off by clicking the Start portal. Where do I want to go? And there are a bunch of different portals here. I'm going to start off with a simple one. A number of these are delivered out of the box. I am going to show you one that I just put together this morning later. And the idea is I'm going to go in and I'm going to initialize the user interface. And what's going to happen is you'll see along the left-hand side, I'll see a simple, the 4Shift Explorer, and I can log in. Now notice I can use 4Shift authentication or Windows authentication. So if I'm doing single sign-in, I can do that. We log in, without going anywhere else, you'll notice it looks and feels much like what you're used to within the typical graphical user interface environment. What's nice is with the Explorer along the side, if I don't know my way around the 4-letter function codes, which go here, I can come over and expand one of these menus and see the different functions that are here. And if I wanted to drive it, instead of typing in 4-letter codes, I wanted to drive it by clicking on the item master, I can drive force shift that way. So you're not stuck to learning all those arcane 4-letter codes if you don't want to. Now, one of the really nice things, and I mentioned this already, is finders. So we're on the initial screen for the item master. Notice I've got the different tabs up top here for detail, lot detail, planning detail. Wow, something called hazmat. What's that? We'll get to that in a second. So let's click on the magnifying glass, and up comes a finder. Finders are what I can use to find data within force shift. And I notice in graphical user interface, I can search on the item and the description. Here, it's pretty much whatever I want to search on, as long as it's part of that master screen. If I click on personalized columns underneath the 3 dots on the right side, I'm going to see a list of all the different columns that are available for me to search on. So I can search on pretty much anything I want to. The list goes on and on and on. Notice I'm going to add planner. So planner is now part of this. And notice I've got logic in how I search. If I click on this drop down, I can say does not contain equals, does not equal, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I can be very specific in what I want to go after. In this case, I just want to go after planner ID of ICG. And hopefully I got some. If I don't, I don't. Let's try AAA. Oh, there's AAA. So planner ID of AAA for these different characteristics. I can be very specific in how I pull back information. If I click on it, that's the item it comes back with, and that's where I'm dropped into the item master. Or if I just clear this off like normal, clear the screen, clear the field, and now I'm at the top of the list. So what's beautiful about this is I've got the ability to come in here, do searches, find data, be specific about what I'm searching against. And what's even better is once I found the data, if I want to, now notice down below, I've got 25 records per page. Let's say I want more. I want 75 records per page. Let's refresh the data. And now notice I can save my criteria that I've defined for this search. I can clear the criteria off, or I can export it directly to Excel. So without doing anything else, I've just taken it out to Excel. I told Excel, yeah, I want to look at that data file. And yes, I want to open it anyway. And there's all that information from that real-time search using a finder. Very powerful stuff. So now let's select an item again. Go back to the main screen. Clear the field. We'll start right at the top. Now notice I said we've got the different buttons along the side here. Or along the top. If I click on hazmat, we're going to find another screen that's been added. So if you've got data that you're putting elsewhere, hopefully not in Excel, hopefully not in Access, but in SQL, well, there's no reason why you can't present that information, not just present it, but accept it, edit it within this framework, within this environment. So you've got the ability to expand what you can do with Force Shift Workplace to include data that by definition is not part of the Force Shift data dictionary. But there's no reason why you can't do that to give a unified user interface to your users. So let's look at one of the tabs. Again, you're going to find the look and feel is very, very much like what you're used to within the Force Shift graphical user interface. The difference is I now have a little bit different display. I do have drop downs where there are drop downs. So I can say this could be 3-digit decimal precision, whatever. But I can also add customizations here. So if I scroll through the item master, notice how my planner and buyer fields are open. I got test and ICG, but notice how my lead times are closed. That's because I logged in with the user ID of AAA, and I set validation logic up that says, if the user ID does not equal the planner ID, don't allow me to change those fields. If I scroll down to my next item, AAA, notice how those fields are now open because planner does equal who the user is. So I can take control over the normal logic that ForceShift provides, and I can augment it to do things that it wouldn't do out of the box, but makes sense for your business. What can you do? It really depends on what you need. I mean, it depends on how advanced or even how simple the changes are that you want to make. Now, to see something a little bit more advanced, let's go to the item detail.
Hey, Roger,
Notice
really quickly.
Yeah.
A real quick question. I hate to interrupt you. Can you
That's right.
export more than one page from the search?
Up to 75 columns or 75 rows. So no, it's up to 75 rows. So you would potentially, if you want to export more than one page, you'd have to do multiple extensions.
Thanks.
Yep, sure thing. So we're on the item.
One way to skin that cat too. So just as an input here, Workplace combined with Power BI product is a very powerful tool. So we can hand off things to Power BI, which would invoke that search in a complete list and spin it right into Excel. So there are some really great things you can do, and ForceShift in effect becomes a completely modern interface. So keeping in mind that you can integrate anything you want in real time in front of you is very powerful.
And building on that, case in point too, since I've got Connectivity Toolkit, there's nothing stopping me from adding a button that calls the SQL query. So it depends on how you want to skin that cat. There's lots of things you can do. But Jeff's point is very valid. I could take it out to Power BI and then do additional data manipulation with it in that environment, reporting and analytics, whatever. So we're looking at the item detail screen, and notice I've got two different groupings of information of data that don't come from this screen naturally. And if I scroll down, notice how the information does change based on what item I'm on. The whole idea being I've added these things in. I can pull from other data sources, or I can pull from ForceShift itself using the key information I've got on this screen to pull this data. Now, other things you're going to see changed are I've got a couple of fields over here. Instead of item reference 2, item reference 1, the label's been changed to be scale and average days. And in item class 1, if I hover over this field, notice how there's a drop down now, and I can select an item class. Oops, I didn't like that one. Let's change this one to be a 5 here, be a numeric. So if I try to put something in here that's not valid and try to save it, it shouldn't let me do that. Same thing here. If I try to put something in here that's an alphabetic, try to submit it, not going to let me save it. And it's got to be a numeric. Same thing with my age days. Oops, let's change this to something numeric here. So my age days, if I try to put something large in and save it, it's going to tell me it must be between 1 and 5. The whole idea is I can use these fields to drive other logic within the system, and I can validate what I'm storing here so that I make sure that wherever I'm going to be downstream driving logic, the upstream information that I use to classify is going to be accurate and correct and meet within my rules and criteria. One last thing I want to show you here in this portal is notice how I've got underlines here. These fields are hot links. So if I pick one of these fields, let's go down to 19 black. Come on. I go right to ITMC. I also have a go back button. So go back takes me back to where I came from. Or I can drop down to a different, let's see, stock status by item. And it takes me to that screen. Another nice thing about what Infor has done within the workplace environment is on the stock status by item and the stock status by location. Notice again, I've got the 3 characters on the side here. I can do properties column and I can export to Excel. So if I've got a lot of inventory, I can dynamically take it right out to Excel based on my criteria. And I can set the criteria in this grid based on what I want to look for. So there's a lot more flexibility built into the system if you know how to use it, if you know how to leverage it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to log off of this portal. And instead, I'm going to log into a new portal that I created this morning, just messing around. This is my planner workbench. And notice I've set this up so that when it logs into 4Shift, it's going to log into 4 different screens. And if you have more real estate on your screen, these could all be full-size screens. As it is, I'm working with a smaller display, so I can't quite fit everything in. But notice I'm going to come over here, I'm going to click Message Code to Review as All. And notice how all 3 screens that are linked to this change. That's because I'm publishing the item master of the record I'm on, and these 3 screens are subscribing to it. So I've got stock by item, I've got the item master, and I've got supply demand. If I come over to one of these screens, one of these frames, and expand it, and I can now see the full screen. Or I can shrink it back down to be just a smaller image. So if I come down here, let's go to a record with a different, do I have a different part number on here? I thought I did. Maybe I don't. Oh, I do, 100 parent. Let's look at this record. So I click on it and it repaints the other 3 screens because they're subscribing to that information. Now I might want to look at supply demand and I see supply demand information. So the nice thing is, you know, when you're used to using 4Shift, one of the things you get really used to doing is lots of Post-it notes because you can't remember where you were, what screen you were looking at. This takes care of that because if I'm smart about how I set up my environment, I want to have the 4 screens that I'm used to being with, working with the most time, linked together so that I'm always just popping back and forth between frames and not having to write things down to remember to go to another screen, then to go back to another screen. It's a very, very useful environment. And I can change or add different product order entry, whatever kinds of frames or workplace environment makes sense for you. And that is what I wanted to show you as far as how workplace functions. And let me get to the next screen. So discussion and questions. Yeah, you know, I got to tell you, it's interesting. I know a lot of companies that have workplace and have never gotten beyond just using a single screen or haven't done much with personalization with Connectivity Toolkit. And you're missing out on some real value there because the ability to have those multiple screens open, publish and subscribe linked together, or to add logic or validation or just simple things like changing field labels. It's extremely powerful and it really helps with user adoption of how comfortable they are with the environment, especially if you've got fields that you want to use to classify data. It helps to validate, it helps to label so they know what's what. So our next webinar is scheduled for Wednesday, September 3rd. This is Elevated ERP Dashboards, Power BI. We've been talking about it for a long time, and I know it's a real hot topic for a lot of folks. The whole idea is that there's so much you can do with the data in 4Shift. You just need a better way to manage it, present it, be able to analyze it and report on it. And usually, I mean, let's face it, some of the reports, many of the reports within 4Shift are limited at best, and they certainly are not real time as far as being able to manipulate the information or do things with it, come up with multiple displays, KPIs, things like that. Well, join us for this presentation. I think you'll be really impressed with what you see. It's going to show financial, customer 365, as well as manufacturing. So plan on joining us if you can make your calendar free.
Okay, Roger, it looks like we had a question that came in.
Okay.
Is it possible to change background on Workplace to identify which database is being used? Example, live versus test, making test a different color to visibly see it is the test database.
It is possible to do that. It's above my ability to tell you how to do that, but yes, I know that can be done.
Great. Thank you.
Yep,
Thank you.
that's a great question. You want to make sure you're in the system that you think you're in.
That's exactly right. Okay, well, I don't see any other questions at this time. But if anybody does have any questions, please reach out to us and let us know. Once we're done processing everything here, we will definitely send out the video to everybody so you can take another look and see if there was anything you missed, or you can forward that to other people within your organization that might find this webinar to be really useful. I thank everybody for attending today, and hope everybody has a wonderful day, and we'll look forward to seeing you all at our next event on September 3rd, where we talk about Power BI. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.